The chicken coop needed fixing again. Owen pulled another loose board from the fence and tossed it onto the pile of broken wood behind the barn. 14 years old, and already he felt ancient, worn down by the endless cycle of repair and survival on this forgotten farm at the edge of Redwood Kingdom. Nobody cared about orphans out here. Nobody cared about anything beyond the city walls. Thunder rolled across the hills, even though the sky held no clouds. Owen froze, hammer in hand, listening. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Then came a sound like metal tearing, followed by an explosion that lit up the western ridge in brilliant orange flames. He should have stayed put. Should have hidden in the cellar like he did when the tax collectors came around. But curiosity pulled him forward, through the dry grass and up the hillside toward the smoke rising against the evening sky. The crash site looked like something from the old war stories. A metal pod the size of a wagon had carved a deep furrow through the earth, scattering dirt and rocks in every direction. The hull was black and smooth, covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift when Owen looked at them directly. Heat radiated from the wreckage in waves that a crack ran along the side of the pod. Through it, Owen could see movement, his heart hammered as he approached. Everyone knew the stories about the great dragon purge 20 years ago. The kingdom's mages had hunted down every last dragon, claiming they were mindless beasts who threatened civilization. Owen had been too young to remember, but the older folks still talked about the fires and the screaming. The crack widened. A massive scaled head pushed through, eyes dimmed with pain. The dragon was beautiful and terrible, her scales the color of deep emeralds shot through with gold. Blood seeped from dozens of wounds across her body. Owen should have run. Instead, he stepped closer, the dragon's eyes focused on him. Her mouth opened, revealing teeth like daggers, but no fire came. Only a sound, low and mournful, that made Owen's chest ache with a sadness he could not name. Behind the dying dragon, something small moved in the shadows of the pod. A baby, no bigger than a house cat, covered in scales that gleamed like polished copper. The tiny creature mewed, confused and afraid. The mother dragon reached out with one massive claw. She touched Owen's forehead with surprising gentleness. The world exploded into light and memory that he saw worlds burning. Saw his own kingdom's soldiers in their bright armor cutting down dragons who had never raised a claw in anger. Saw the lies spread by the mages who feared what they could not control. Dragons had been peacekeepers once, guardians of dozens of star systems. They had refused to become weapons for the kingdom's wars of expansion. So the kingdom had destroyed them. The visions faded. The mother dragon slumped forward, her breathing shallow. In the dying light of the pod's emergency systems, Owen understood what she was asking, what she was begging him to do. Protect my child. The dragon's eyes closed for the last time. Her massive body grew still. Owen stood in the wreckage, his mind reeling from everything he had seen. The baby dragon crawled forward, sniffing at its mother's snout. When she did not respond, it made a sound so heartbroken that Owen felt tears on his own cheeks. He knelt down and scooped up the baby dragon before he could think better of it. The creature was warm against his chest, trembling. It looked up at him with eyes that held too much intelligence to belong to any simple animal. "I will keep you safe," Owen whispered. "I promise." The dragon baby made a soft chirping sound and pressed closer to him. Getting back to the farm took an hour. Owen kept to the shadows, avoiding the main road. The baby dragon seemed to understand the need for stealth. She stayed quiet against his chest, occasionally peeking out to look around with curious eyes. The barn cellar was old and forgotten, accessed through a trapdoor hidden under moldy hay. Owen had discovered it years ago and used it to hide his meager savings from bandits. Now it would serve a different purpose, that he made a nest from old blankets and placed the dragon baby inside. She explored the small space, sniffing at corners and pawing at the dirt floor. When Owen moved to leave, she made a distressed sound. "I will come back," he told her. "I need to get you food." The dragon baby tilted her head, studying him. Then she settled into the blankets with a small sigh. Owen climbed back up into the barn and replaced the trapdoor. His hands were shaking. He had just committed treason against the kingdom. Hiding a dragon meant death if he was caught. But when he closed his eyes, he saw the mother dragon's memories, saw the truth about what his kingdom had done, that he would not let them finish their genocide. Not this time. Through the barn walls, Owen could hear the distant sounds of the village. Life went on as normal. Nobody knew that everything had just changed. Nobody knew that in a cellar beneath a forgotten farm, the last dragon baby in the kingdom had found a protector. Owen went to feed his chickens, his mind already working through the problems ahead. The dragon would need food, shelter, training, and above all, she would need to stay hidden from a kingdom that had murdered her entire species. He named her Cinder, after the ashes of her mother's funeral pyre that he would build tomorrow. Tonight, he had an orphan dragon to feed and a new purpose to fulfill. The stars came out above the Redwood Kingdom, indifferent to the small rebellion beginning in a barn at the edge of nowhere. 6 months changed everything and nothing at all. The farm looked the same from the road, still shabby and forgotten, still the kind of place travelers hurried past without a second glance. But beneath the surface, in the hidden cellar and the new tunnels that branched out from it, a miracle was growing. Cinder had transformed from a cat-sized hatchling into something magnificent. She was as large as a hunting dog now, her copper scales darkening to bronze, her wings strong enough to carry her on short flights through the night sky. Owen watched her glide between the barn and the old oak tree, her movements graceful and silent. The bond between them had deepened in ways Owen barely understood. Sometimes he could feel what she felt, taste the iron tang of the rabbits she hunted, sense her contentment when she curled up near him in the evenings. The mother dragon's final gift had linked them in ways that went beyond simple companionship. "Come down," Owen called softly. "Gerald is visiting today." Cinder landed beside him with barely a sound, folding her wings against her sides. She butted her head against his shoulder, a gesture of affection that never failed to make him smile. Then she was gone, disappearing into one of the tunnel entrances she had dug herself. The dragon was smart enough to know when to hide. Gerald arrived an hour later, his wagon loaded with supplies. The merchant was a wiry man with suspicious eyes and a tendency to ask too many questions. He had been sniffing around the farm for weeks, clearly noticing that Owen's small operation was somehow thriving despite all logic. "Interesting purchases you've been making, boy," Gerald said, unloading sacks of refined mineral powder. "Most farmers want seed and tools. You want sulfur and copper dust. Makes a man wonder what you are really doing out here." Owen kept his face neutral, experimenting with fertilizer, trying new methods. Gerald looked around the farm with narrow eyes. "And the scorched patches I see when I fly over? Your experiments burning crops now, control burns, clears parasites from the soil." It was a weak lie, and they both knew it. But Gerald was a businessman first and a concerned citizen second. As long as Owen kept paying, the merchant would keep delivering, even if his curiosity gnawed at him. After Gerald left, Owen sat on the porch and let himself worry. The merchant would report something eventually. It was only a matter of time before the Royal Guard came investigating. He needed a better plan, needed allies. The answer came from an unexpected direction. Owen was teaching Cinder to retrieve specific objects when he heard giggles from behind the barn. He spun around to find 3 children staring at them with wide eyes. 2 girls and a boy, none older than 10, all wearing the threadbare clothes that marked them as orphans from the village. "Please do not tell anyone," Owen said, stepping between them and Cinder. "Please." The smallest girl, her hair a wild tangle of red, stepped forward instead of back. "Is that really a dragon?" "Yes. They told us dragons were monsters," the boy said. He had a scar across his cheek and the hard eyes of someone who had seen too much suffering. "They told us the dragons would eat us." Cinder poked her head around Owen's legs, curious. The children froze. The dragon tilted her head, studying them with intelligent eyes. Then she did something Owen had never seen before. She lay down and rolled onto her back, exposing her vulnerable belly in a gesture of complete trust. The red-haired girl laughed with delight. "She wants us to pet her." "Wait," Owen started, but the children were already rushing forward. He tensed, ready to intervene, but Cinder simply rumbled with pleasure as small hands scratched her scales. The boy with the scar looked up at Owen. "You are the orphan who lives alone out here. My name is Daniel. Everyone in the village knows about you." "I thought nobody cared about orphans," Owen said. "Nobody does," one of the girls replied. Her name was Rose, and her sister was Lily. "That is why we understand. You are protecting her because nobody else will." Over the next weeks, the three children became regular visitors. They brought friends. Orphans, all of them. Kids who had been abandoned or forgotten by the kingdom's citizens. They came after dark, following the old creek bed that hid their approach. Soon Owen had a network of nearly 20 children who knew about Cinder. He taught them the truth he had learned from the Mother Dragon's memories. Showed them how gentle Cinder could be, how intelligent and loyal. The children spread the truth among themselves, careful to never speak of it around adults. They helped in other ways, too. Rose had a talent for spotting Royal Guard patrols from miles away. Daniel knew which merchants could be trusted and which were too friendly with the authorities. Lily had a gift for distraction, leading suspicious adults on wild chases, while Owen moved Cinder to safety point one evening. As Owen watched Cinder play with the children in the moonlight, he realized what they had built. A family. Not the traditional kind, but something stronger. They were all outcasts, all forgotten by a kingdom that valued power over compassion. Together, they were protecting something precious. "She's getting too big to hide much longer," Daniel said, sitting beside Owen on the fence. "What will you do when she cannot fit in the cellar anymore?" Owen had been asking himself the same question. Cinder was growing fast. In another 6 months, she would be the size of a horse. The tunnels would not contain her forever. "I do not know," he admitted, "but we will figure out together." Daniel nodded. "The other kids and I have been talking. Whatever happens, we are with you. All of us." High above, Cinder soared through the night sky, free and wild and beautiful. Owen watched her and felt the bond between them pulse with warmth. The kingdom had tried to destroy her kind, but they had failed. One baby dragon had survived, and an army of orphan children had risen to protect her. The game had changed. Owen was no longer alone. News traveled slowly to the forgotten edges of the kingdom, but when it arrived, it came like a thunderclap. Rose burst into the barn during evening chores, her face pale with fear. "Ships in the sky," she gasped, fighting for breath. "Huge ones, black as night. They are hovering over the capital city." Owen dropped the bucket he was holding. "What kind of ships?" "Not ours." The town crier said they are aliens. The Obsidian Horde. They are demanding the kingdom surrender, or they will burn everything. The other children gathered quickly, summoned by the whistle code they had developed. Daniel arrived last, having run all the way from the village square where proclamations were being read. "The Royal Guard is mobilizing," he reported. "But everyone knows it is pointless. Our weapons are nothing compared to what those ships carry. The mages are panicking. The nobles are fleeing to their country estates." Owen descended into the cellar where Cinder rested. She was massive now, nearly the size of a draft horse, her bronze scales gleaming even in the dim light. She sensed his distress immediately, rising to press her snout against his chest. Through their bond, Owen felt her confusion. She had grown up hidden and peaceful, hunting rabbits and playing with children. The concept of war was foreign to her inherited memories, carefully kept from her by a mother who had wanted her child to know only peace. "I need to show you something," Owen said quietly. He opened his mind fully to their bond for the first time, letting the memories flow both ways. He showed Cinder what her mother had shown him. The truth about the Great Dragon Purge, the slaughter of innocents, the lies that had justified genocide. Cinder recoiled, her eyes wide with horror and grief. She had known her mother died, but not why. Not the full scope of what had been taken from her. Then Owen showed her something else. The children who protected her. The small acts of kindness he had witnessed in the village. The merchants who gave orphans day-old bread. The families who, despite their own poverty, left out bowls of soup for those who had nothing. Not everyone in the kingdom was guilty. Most were simply trying to survive. Cinder settled back down, processing everything. When she looked at Owen again, her eyes held a new understanding and a question. What do we do? The children were waiting when Owen emerged. 20 pairs of eyes looked to him for answers he did not have. The kingdom destroyed Cinder's family, Lily said softly. Why should we help them? It was Daniel who answered. Because if we do nothing, everyone dies. The bad people and the good people. The ones who ordered the purge and the ones who were just trying to live their lives. The kingdom does not deserve our help, Rose added. But the people in it might. My grandmother lives in the capital. She took me in when my parents died. She is not a bad person, just powerless. Owen thought about the choice before him. He could stay hidden, keep Cinder safe, watch from a distance as the Obsidian Horde destroyed everything. Or he could risk the only family he had ever known for people who had never cared about him. We help, he decided, but on our terms. They worked through the night on a plan. Daniel knew a scribe who could make copies of documents. Rose had access to the village's communication tower through her work cleaning the operator's office. Lily was friends with a boy whose father ran the largest printing press in the region, .by Dawn. They had a message ready. Owen had written it himself, simple and direct. It explained what Cinder was, what the kingdom had done to her kind, and what Owen was offering in exchange for the chance to defend them. The children spread out across the region like seeds on the wind. They posted copies of Owen's message in every village square, every market, every public space they could reach. By noon, the entire Redwood Kingdom knew the truth. A dragon had survived. An orphan boy had protected her. And now he was willing to fight for them, but demanded something in return: acknowledgement, apology, change. The royal guard came for him that evening. Owen had expected them. He stood in front of the barn with Cinder beside him, no longer hiding. The children formed a protective line behind them, armed with nothing but stubborn courage. Lord Commander Brennan led the patrol. He was an older man, scarred from a lifetime of battle, his armor polished to a mirror shine. He stopped his horse 20 paces away and studied the dragon for a long moment. So it is true, Brennan said finally. A survivor. Her name is Cinder, Owen replied. And if you try to hurt her, you'll have to go through all of us. Brennan looked at the children with their makeshift weapons and thin frames. Then he did something unexpected. He dismounted and removed his helmet. I was there, the old soldier said quietly. During the purge, I followed orders because that is what soldiers do. But I have carried the weight of it every day since. The screaming, the fires, the way they looked at us with understanding even as they died. He knelt in the dirt. His soldiers gasped in shock. I cannot undo what was done, Brennan continued. But if you are willing to fight for this kingdom despite everything, then I will fight beside you. And when this is over, I will stand witness to the truth. Behind him, a few soldiers also dismounted and knelt. Not all, but enough. Owen felt something shift in that moment. The kingdom was not monolithic. There were people within it who carried shame, who wanted redemption, who might be willing to change. There is another with us, Brennan said. High Mage Aldrich. He has been studying the Obsidian Horde. He believes we might have a chance if we work together. An old man in blue robes approached from the back of the patrol. His eyes were red from crying. I cast the first spell, Aldrich whispered. During the purge, I started it all because I was afraid of what I did not understand. If you let me help now, perhaps I can begin to make amends. Owen looked at Cinder. Through their bond, he felt her judgment and her mercy. She had every right to hate these people. Instead, she chose to hope. Then we fight together, Owen said. And when it is over, this kingdom will face what it has done. Above them, the black ships of the Obsidian Horde descended from orbit like falling stars. The War Council met in Owen's barn. It would have been funny under different circumstances. Lords and generals crowded into a structure meant for chickens and hay, while an orphan boy and a dragon planned the defense of an entire kingdom. High Mage Aldrich spread maps across an overturned crate. The Horde has 12 ships in orbit. Each one carries enough firepower to level a city. Their ground troops are professional soldiers augmented with combat drugs. We have farmers with pitchforks and a military that has not fought a real war in decades. You forgot one thing, Daniel said from the doorway. The boy had appointed himself Owen's assistant, refusing to leave his side. We have Cinder. Lord Commander Brennan nodded slowly. The dragon is our only advantage. She can go places our troops cannot. Strike from angles the horde will not expect. But she is still just one fighter against an entire fleet. Owen had been studying the tactical displays Aldrich provided. The horde ships moved in predictable patterns, rotating their positions every 6 hours. They were confident, lazy even. Why worry about orbital security when facing primitives? Cinder can survive in space, Owen said. Everyone turned to look at him. I know it sounds impossible, but I can feel it through our bond. Dragons were meant to travel between stars. Their bodies can withstand vacuum and temperature extremes that would kill anything else. Aldrich's eyes widened. If that is true, then she can attack the ships directly. But even with that advantage, 12 warships are too many. We do not need to destroy them all, Owen countered. Just hurt them badly enough that they retreat. Make them understand the cost of staying is too high. Rose entered with a group of children carrying bundles of supplies. The Orphan network had transformed into a logistics operation, moving food and equipment faster than the kingdom's official channels. The evacuation of the eastern villages is complete, she reported. Everyone who wanted to leave is gone. The ones who stayed are ready to fight. Brennan looked impressed, despite himself. Your children are more organized than my supply corps. We have had practice at surviving, Rose replied simply, just usually on a smaller scale. The plan took shape over the next hours. Cinder would strike the horde fleet at dawn, targeting their command ship first. The mages would create shield barriers around the 3 largest cities. The military would prepare for ground combat, using the tactics Brennan had learned from decades of border skirmishes, and the children would serve as the communication network, their knowledge of secret paths and hidden routes making them perfect messengers. There is one more thing, Aldrich said hesitantly. I've been researching the old records about dragons. Before the Purge, they had an ability we never fully understood. They could share their consciousness with bonded partners, create a telepathic network. Owen felt Cinder's interest spike through their connection. What would that do? It would let multiple people see what she sees. Coordinate attacks in real time. Turn her from a single fighter into the center of a strategic web. Aldrich paused, but it requires trust. Complete openness between the dragon and those she links with. Owen looked at the children who had risked everything to protect Cinder. At Brennan, who carried the guilt of the purge but chose to fight anyway. At Aldrich, whose shame drove him toward redemption. I will ask her, Owen said, but the choice is hers. He reached through the bond and showed Cinder what Aldrich proposed. For a long moment, she was silent. Then Owen felt her decision, clear and strong, that if they were willing to trust her, she would trust them in return. The linking happened at midnight. Owen guided each volunteer through the process, teaching them to open their minds the way his had opened when Cinder's mother touched him. Daniel was first, then Rose and Lily. Brennan followed, his soldiers' discipline making the connection smooth. Aldrich came last, tears streaming down his face as he felt Cinder's forgiveness flow through the bond by dawn. 23 people were linked to the dragon. They could see through her eyes, feel her confidence, share her strength. And Cinder could feel all of them supporting her. The sun broke over the horizon. Cinder spread her wings and launched herself skyward. Owen watched through their shared vision as she climbed higher and higher, punching through clouds, racing toward the stars. The horde ships hung in orbit like dark jewels. Their crews were relaxed, confident. They had crushed a dozen worlds before this one. They saw no threat from the primitive planet below. They did not see Cinder until she was already among them. She struck the command ship first, her claws tearing through shields that were designed to stop missiles and energy weapons, not a living creature moving at impossible speeds. Alarms blared across the horde fleet. Cinder was already gone, hitting the second ship from below, her plasma breath carving through hull plating like it was paper. Owen coordinated from the ground, his mind linked to hers. He could see everything she saw, anticipate the horde's responses. When fighters launched, he guided her through evasive maneuvers. When point defense systems activated, he found their blind spots. The other linked minds added their knowledge. Brennan's tactical expertise. Aldrich's understanding of shield frequencies. Daniel's quick thinking. Rose's spatial awareness. Cinder destroyed 3 ships in the first hour. Damaged 4 more. The Horde fleet broke formation, panic spreading through their ranks. How could one creature cause such devastation? But the battle took its toll. Owen felt every hit Cinder took, every burn from energy weapons, every piece of shrapnel that tore through her wings. The pain was overwhelming, shared across all the linked minds. "She is hurt," Lily whispered, her face pale. "She is winning," Daniel countered. "Look at them. They are retreating." It was true. The Horde ships were pulling back, trying to gain distance. But their ground troops had already launched. Drop pods were falling toward the major cities like burning rain. Brennan stood. "The mages need to hold the shields. The military will engage the ground forces." "Owen, can Cinder keep the fleet occupied?" Through the bond, Owen felt Cinder's determination. She was bleeding, exhausted but not defeated. "Yes," he said, "she will keep them busy. Then we fight for our home," Brennan declared. "And when this is over, we will deserve the judgment that comes." The orphan children scattered to their positions. The soldiers marched toward the cities. High Mage Aldrich joined his fellow mages to channel their power into protective barriers, and in orbit above, a bronze dragon danced between starships, fighting not for the kingdom that had murdered her kind, but for the people who had shown her a different path. Owen stood in his barn and felt the battle rage through 23 connected minds. They were no longer separate, no longer just orphans and soldiers and mages and dragon. They were something new, something the Obsidian Horde had not planned for. They were hope given form, and they were not surrendering. The capital city burned. Drop pods had smashed through buildings, disgorging Horde soldiers who moved through the streets with brutal efficiency. These are not warriors who took prisoners or showed mercy. They were conquerors who had crushed resistance on dozens of worlds, but they had never fought a world defended by children who had nothing left to lose. Rose coordinated the evacuation through narrow alleys the Horde's tactical maps did not show. Lily led groups of civilians through ancient sewer systems that predated the current kingdom. Daniel organized the distribution of weapons to anyone willing to fight, regardless of age or experience. The Orphan network had become the kingdom's nervous system, moving information and people faster than any official channel could manage. Owen felt it all through the shared bond with Cinder. He experienced the battle from 23 different perspectives at once. Saw the Horde soldiers advancing through Brennan's eyes. Felt the strain of maintaining shields through Aldrich's consciousness. Watched the city burn from Cinder's aerial view. And through it all, he felt the dragon's pain. She had destroyed 6 Horde ships now, but the cost was terrible. Her wings were torn. Burns covered her scales. She was flying on sheer willpower, refusing to quit while her bonded companions fought below in the Eastern District. Brennan's soldiers made their stand. The Lord Commander had abandoned traditional formations in favor of guerrilla tactics. His troops fought from rooftops and cellars, using their knowledge of the city to ambush Horde squads. "They are hurting us," Brennan realized, his thoughts flowing through the network. "Pushing us toward the central plaza. It is a kill zone. Then we let them," Owen responded, seeing the tactical opportunity. "Cinder, can you reach the plaza?" Through the bond, he felt her exhaustion, but also her determination. She banked hard, dropping through the atmosphere like a falling star. The Horde soldiers in the plaza never saw her coming. Cinder hit the ground with the force of a meteor. Her plasma breath turned armored warriors into ash. Her tail swept through ranks of soldiers like a scythe through wheat. The Horde's confidence shattered as they faced something their battle computers could not categorize: that a dragon fighting alongside humans. An alliance their intelligence had said was impossible, but the victory came at a price. A Horde gunship emerged from behind a building and fired at point-blank range. The energy blast caught Cinder in the side, burning through scales and flesh. She screamed, and 23 voices screamed with her. Owen felt her falling, felt the agony of broken ribs and punctured organs. Through their bond, he tried to give her strength, but it was not enough. Cinder crashed into the plaza, her massive body tearing up cobblestones. The Horde soldiers advanced, weapons raised. They had finally brought down the dragon. Then High Mage Aldrich did something no mage had done in recorded history. He channeled his life force directly into the telepathic network, burning himself away to give Cinder one last surge of power. "Forgive me," the old mage whispered as his body turned to ash. "For what I did to your kind. For what we all did." His sacrifice flowed through the bond like liquid fire. Cinder's eyes snapped open. She rose on shaking legs, fueled by Aldrich's final gift. Her roar shook windows across the city. The horde soldiers stumbled back, suddenly afraid. She tore through them like a storm, her movements driven by something beyond physical capability. Owen felt Aldrich's presence even after death, a ghost in the network lending his strength. The horde broke. For the first time in their conquest history, they retreated from ground combat. Their remaining ships in orbit prepared to bombard the planet from a safe distance. No, Brenangrolith. Through the network, Owen felt the old soldier's rage. We do not let them escape. We do not let them regroup and come back stronger. Cinder cannot fly, Owen said, feeling her injuries through the bond. She is done. Then we give her wings. Brennan rallied every mage in the city. Together, they created a shield platform beneath Cinder, lifting her into the sky on pure magical force. It was an insane expenditure of power, draining the mages to their limits. But it worked. Cinder rose toward orbit one final time, carried by the desperate hope of people who had decided to fight for a better kingdom than the one they had inherited. The Horde fleet saw her coming. They fired everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled space around the dragon. But the linked minds guided her through the storm. 23 people thinking as one, anticipating every threat, finding every gap. She reached the flagship. The Horde commander stared through his view screen at the impossible sight of a dragon in the void of space, her eyes blazing with fury and justice. Cinder tore the flagship apart. Not quickly, but methodically, making sure every ship in the Horde fleet witnessed their commander's death. She sent a message written in fire and blood. This world was protected. This world would not surrender. And if they returned, they would face not just a dragon, but an entire kingdom that had found its courage. The remaining Horde ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing the system. They left behind their ground troops, their honor, and their reputation for invincibility. Cinder fell back to the planet, her strength finally exhausted. The mages caught her descent, guiding her to a gentle landing in the central plaza. Owen ran to her side, feeling her heartbeat slow through the bond. "Stay with me," he pleaded, pressing his hands against her wounds. "We won. You won. You cannot leave now." The children gathered around them. The soldiers formed a protective circle. The mages channeled what little power they had left into healing magic. And Cinder, who had every reason to hate humanity, who had been hunted by them and hidden because of them, chose to live, chose to trust that the kingdom she had saved might become something worth saving. Her wounds began to close. Slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. Owen looked up to find Queen Lydia standing at the edge of the plaza. She had emerged from her bunker now that the battle was over. Her crown sat crooked on her head, and her royal robes were stained with dust. She looked at the dragon, at the orphan boy, at the children and soldiers and mages who had defended her kingdom while she hid. Then she knelt in the rubble and wept. "What have we done?" the queen whispered. "What did we become?" Owen had no answer for her, but he knew that the conversation they needed to have would come soon. First, there was a dragon to heal and a kingdom to rebuild. The sun set over the Redwood Kingdom, painting the smoke-filled sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere in the ruins, orphan children helped civilians find their lost families. Soldiers who had learned to fight alongside dragons instead of against them began clearing debris. Mages who had once supported genocide now channeled their power toward healing. Everything had changed. And tomorrow, they would begin the hard work of making sure those changes lasted. 3 weeks after the battle, Queen Lydia traveled alone to Owen's farm. She arrived at dawn without guards or ceremony, walking the dusty road like any common traveler. Owen watched her approach from the porch where he sat with Cinder, whose wounds had healed into silver scars that marked her scales. The queen stopped at the fence. She looked smaller without her crown and royal bearing. More human. "May I approach?" she asked. Owen nodded. Through the bond, he felt Cinder's wariness, but also her willingness to listen. Lydia knelt in the dirt before them. Not the formal kneel of political theater, but the collapse of someone carrying an unbearable weight. "I knew," she said simply, "about the purge, about the lies. I was 12 years old when my father ordered it, and I knew it was wrong. But I said nothing, did nothing. I let an entire species die because I was afraid." She looked up at Cinder with tears streaming down her face. "I am sorry. Those words mean nothing measured against what was taken from you, but they are all I have." Cinder studied the queen for a long moment. Then she did something that made Owen's heart swell. She reached out with one clawed hand and gently touched Lydia's shoulder. Not forgiveness, perhaps, but acknowledgement. A beginning. "The kingdom needs to change," Owen said. "Not just words. Real change." "I know." Lydia stood, wiping her eyes. "I have already begun. The Dragon Remembrance Commission will document everything. Every death, every lie. The truth will be taught in schools. Monuments will be built." "That is a start," Daniel said, emerging from the barn with Rose and Lily. The children had become permanent fixtures at the farm, refusing to return to the orphanage system that had failed them. "But what about the living?" Lydia turned to face them. "You mean the orphans?" "We mean everyone the kingdom forgot," Rose corrected. "The poor, the abandoned, the people on the edges who only matter when you need someone to fight your wars." The queen flinched, but she did not look away. "You are right. I am creating a new position. Guardian of the Forgotten. Someone to speak for those without voice in court. I want Owen to fill it." Owen laughed without humor. "You want an orphan farm boy to advise the crown? I want someone who understands what it means to be powerless. Someone who chose compassion over revenge when he had every reason to choose differently." "I refuse," Owen said flatly. Lydia blinked in surprise. "You refuse?" "I'm not a politician. I am a dragon's companion. But I know someone who would be perfect for the job." He gestured to Lord Commander Brennan, who had arrived with a group of soldiers to help rebuild the farm's damaged structures. The old warrior looked shocked. "I'm a soldier, not a courtier." "You are someone who carries shame and wants to do better," Owen countered. "Someone who knows the cost of following unjust orders. The kingdom does not need more smooth talkers. It needs people who remember what failure looks like." Brennan was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I accept, but only if you agree to serve as an advisor. You and your network of children." And so it began. The orphan children became the eyes and ears of the new administration, reporting directly to Brennan on conditions throughout the kingdom. Rose developed a talent for organization that saw her managing relief efforts. Daniel's strategic mind made him invaluable in planning infrastructure improvements. Lily became the voice of the young, speaking at council meetings about education and opportunity. But Owen remained at the farm, working with Cinder on something more important. The mother dragon's escape pod had contained more than just a dying refugee and her child. It held data, coordinates, locations across the galaxy where other dragons might have fled during the purge. High Mage Aldrich, before his death, had decoded enough of it to create a map. A treasure hunt written in starlight and hope. The Queen provided a ship, one of the captured Horde vessels, refitted and renamed the Silver Dawn. It was not elegant, but it was fast and well-armed, perfect for a rescue mission across the stars. Owen stood in the barn one last time, looking at the place that had sheltered Cinder through her most vulnerable months. The cellar where she had hidden, the rafters she had learned to perch in, the dirt floor marked with her claw prints. "Are you certain you want to do this?" Brennan asked. The old soldier had come to see them off, his new role as guardian of the forgotten already transforming the kingdom's policies. "The Redwood Kingdom is changing," Owen replied. "But there are dragons out there who still hide in fear, who still believe humanity wants them dead. Someone needs to find them, show them that things are different now. And if you find a colony that wants revenge, that sees humans as the enemy." Owen looked at Cinder, whose scales gleamed in the morning light. "Then we will show them what we showed the Obsidian Horde. that humans can change, that we can be protectors instead of destroyers. The orphan children gathered to say goodbye. They had become a family, bound by shared struggle and hope. But they understood that some missions required separation. "Bring them home," Rose said, hugging Owen tightly. "Bring all of them home." The Silver Dawn lifted off at noon, carrying Owen, Cinder, and a crew of volunteers who had decided that redemption required action, not just words. They jumped to hyperspace, following coordinates laid down by a dying mother who had trusted humanity one last time. The first stop was a moon called Meridian in a distant system. According to the data, refugees had been spotted there 3 years ago. It was a slim lead, but it was hope. They found a colony of 12 dragons living in volcanic caves, hiding from the galaxy that had hunted them. At first, the dragons prepared to fight, assuming the human ship meant death. Then Cinder landed among them and shared what had happened through the telepathic network all dragons possessed. Showed them the battle, the sacrifice, the choice humanity had made to defend rather than destroy. The eldest dragon, a massive creature whose scales had faded to gray with age, approached the Silver Dawn. He looked at Owen through the view screen with eyes that had witnessed too much suffering. "Why should we trust you?" he asked in a voice like grinding stone. "Your kind murdered millions of us." "Because we are trying to be better," Owen said simply. "And because hiding is not living. Come home. Help us build something new." It took days of negotiation, but eventually, 3 young dragons agreed to return with them. Then they visited another colony, and another. Each time, Cinder told their story. Each time, some chose to trust. 6 months after leaving the Redwood Kingdom, the Silver Dawn returned home. It was not alone. 17 dragons flew in formation around the ship, their scales representing every color of the rainbow. The kingdom had prepared for their arrival, not with weapons, but with territory. The Western Mountains had been declared dragon sanctuaries. Schools were teaching dragon history. Statues of Cinder's mother stood in every major city. Owen stood on the landing platform and watched the dragons descend. He felt Cinder's joy through their bond, her relief that her kind would not die out after all. Queen Lydia was there, older now, her hair showing gray. Brennan stood beside her, his guardian of the forgotten position having become one of the most powerful in the kingdom. The orphan children had become orphan adults, each finding their calling in the new order. The eldest gray dragon landed and transformed the landing platform into a meeting ground. He looked at the assembled humans, at the changes they had wrought, at the genuine attempts at justice. "We will stay," he declared, "not because we forget what was done, but because you have shown us that even the worst failures can choose to change." That night, Owen sat on the roof of his barn, which had been expanded into a proper dragon roost. Cinder rested beside him, her presence a constant comfort through their bond. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked. Cinder's response came as feelings rather than words. "Pride, hope, contentment, and underneath it all, love for the orphan boy who had risked everything to protect her." "Yeah," Owen said, leaning against her warm scales. "Me too." Above them, dragons flew through the night sky for the first time in 20 years. Not as conquerors or threats, but as partners in building something better. The kingdom had regretted hiding Cinder, but more importantly, they had learned from it. And in a small barn at the edge of everywhere, an orphan boy and a dragon watched the stars and dreamed of the galaxy they would explore together. There were more dragons to find, more colonies to convince, more work to be done. But for tonight, they rested. Tomorrow would bring new adventures. Tonight belonged to peace, hard-won and precious, shared between species that had chosen hope over hatred. The Redwood Kingdom slept under a sky filled with dragons. And for the first time in a generation, it felt like home.